Make your first time customer into a repeat customer.
The fire burning red and a Joyce representing of a comes hard here. You know. Big up Kidaki, Buxton massive. Hey Babylon boy, you go on like you know, like come son. Red.
Never Joe, never Joe, never Joe. Oh, money never, money never, money never, money never, money never, money. I know what you can I did money. Money never, money never, money never, money. You can keep your conniving money. When you've been up for a bum, you have been tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, you have been tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me want.
I said money never,
Money never, money, money never, money, money. I know what you can I be money.
oh Joseph.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in to Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Kadaki Amsterdam, where the sun always shines. Guyanese Morning Time, the people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We rise up early morning watching Tom's TV, where wisdom and knowledge, yes, it is the key. Exposing corruptions over land and sea, where the wicked politicians they try to trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting aisle money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see, sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbor, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, which Jah has ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, fooling the people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. I say Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. They got Breakford, Bork and Mark Benchcop. David Hines and Kadaki Amsterdam. Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London. Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow, Port People Governor. Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson. Hampton Green and Winston Jordan. And yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Wyndham Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice.
And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
Do you want to know what happened in 1763 during the Berbice Revolution? On Saturday, August 31st, you can come and hear Professor Marjolaine Cars, author of the book Blood on the River. This is your opportunity to learn what really happened hundreds of years ago, and you will hear it from the voices of those who were there. This is the first in the series of Ipadaji talks on issues relevant to our people. Call 223-8852-3 to reserve your seat. Ipadaji talks, celebrating our heroes. The Berbice Slave Revolution, Saturday, August 31st, Theatre Guild, Georgetown, 16 hours. That's 4 p.m. Hey fans, it's karaoke and oldies night this and every Thursday at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton. Dance to the magical songs of yesteryear by popular DJs and Camps Audio. Admission is free. Come out, let's make memories at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton North.
Comes audio son. You burn this wine when I want you shine. The tree of life, them I want you climb, cause them heart no kind. Comes I say them heart no kind. Buxton Massive, Kidaki, Red Hat.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Ramvelt Market Meat Section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Strong Hope. The business Strong Hope is one of the team members of the Moco Corp. Or they work together. Morning, neighbor, morning. Good morning. Welcome to another program of the Guyanese Morning Time. It is 7 hours 38 on the 27th day of August in the year 2024. Welcome to the program. How are you? How have you been? What have you been up to? What went on yesterday that gave you hope that you could, you should really want to wake up today to continue what you started yesterday, right? I just saw a quarantine mother killing her bedridden child and committing suicide thereafter. What could drive you to such desperation? A 73-year-old woman last week allegedly poisoned her 52-year-old daughter, then took her own life at the 104 Warren Village East Quarantine, Burbage Region 6 home, police have confirmed. Dead are Lelauti Barker and her daughter, Devi Nandalal. According to information from the police, the incident occurred on August 21, 2024 at the residence when Barker gave her daughter, who is bedridden, a poisonous substance, and moments later she drank the same substance and subsequently passed on the same day, while Nandalal died 2 days later. Barker's husband, Franklin Barker, 61-year-old government ranger, told investigators that his wife suffered from diabetes and hypertension, while his daughter Nandalal was disabled since she was 14 years old. The man informed police that about 1 week prior to the incident, Nandalal was not eating, and that his wife reportedly told him on several occasions that she's going to drink poison. On Wednesday, around 7:30 hours, police learned that Barker was having breakfast when she asked him if he was ready for work, to which he replied no. His wife then told him that she is afraid to be at home when he goes to work, the police reported. The man further reported to police that after the conversation, she then gave him a black pouch containing jewelry and subsequently went back to the kitchen. About 5 minutes later, the man said Barker shouted for him and confessed that she drank poison and gave the same substance to their daughter. Franklin ran into the kitchen, where he found his wife lying on the floor with a green substance coming from her mouth. He also saw Nandalal with the same green substance to her mouth. With the help of a neighbor, he rushed both Lelauti and Nandalal to the New Amsterdam hospital. However, Lelauti reportedly died on the same day, while Nandalal was receiving treatment until she passed away on Friday. Franklin reported the matter around 9 hours on the same day, where ranks acted swiftly and visited the scene. Upon their arrival, police found a bottle labeled Orbit Zone, containing a green substance on a table under a shed in the backyard, and a glass with green substance on the table in the lower level of the building. Investigations are continuing. What will drive someone to that state of desperation? To kill a child or an individual, murder an individual, a mother, I should say. What would drive a mother to that state of desperation? To kill her child that she has cared for more than 50 years. And also take her own life. While people see that as murder and suicide, there are deeper lessons to take out of an incident like that. In Guyana, we don't do case studies. In Guyana, the social workers don't follow up on cases like that. The more is murder and suicide. That is what the police say, so be it done. But my first reaction is the woman became frustrated. The woman became desperate. Her husband is a government ranger. Do you know what the salary of a government ranger is? Even if you say it's $100,000, 500 US. It cannot, under any circumstance, sustain a family that has family members with the kind of challenges that this particular family has. Note, a 50-plus-year-old disabled individual. That person obviously cannot contribute to the table financially or otherwise. That person has to be taken care of. It means that one family member cannot go out and work. You have to be there to take care of that bedridden person. So it means in a family of 3, there are 2 persons who are not employed. 2 persons who are not likely to be bringing much financial resources to the table. So imagine a family of 3 adults having to depend on the salary of one government ranger, approximately $500 US monthly. That can sustain them for the basic meals. I am saying that. When you add into that equation the special need, the special care for the bedridden adult, I would assume that that person most likely have to use things like adult pampers, etc. That's a cost, that's a financial burden. When you take into consideration the special needs of the mother, who is a diabetic or was a diabetic, she has to have a, I would say, specialized diet. And so imagine having to deal with all of that from a ranger's salary. Let me be generous. The bedridden adult was getting public assistance. How much is public assistance? Huh? How much is public assistance? Public assistance is given to persons like the disabled adult. I have a friend who will tell me the amount for public assistance. Please message me. I don't need to call your name if you're listening to the program. But public assistance doesn't amount to much. $17,000, it all says. And why am I talking about this the way I'm talking about it? Because I want us to have a real view of what citizens in this country really are faced with, especially those who are taking care of disabled family members, the differently abled. It is a burning shame. It is a burning shame in a society like ours that the people who are disabled, there's a Commission for Disability, I think it's on, that would be Coe Street, in the vicinity of Border there, if I remember clearly. There are people who have disabled family members, and they've been complaining to me over time about going there for assistance. And all the frustrations. All the frustrations. This month, they are on the register. Next month, they are off the register. This year, they're on the register. Next year, they're off the register. I know an individual who ran to that commission for more than 5 years to get a visibly certifiable disabled family member onto the register. Danson is now saying the money is 19,000. All right, let me be generous again. Let's say $20,000, $100 a month. In an economy of plenty, because it's the fastest growing economy, we're collecting billions, millions of US dollars per month, 76 million US dollars per month, or approximately $76 million US dollars per month from the oil resources. All we are hearing this government talk about is sandstone, cement, and steel. It dawned on me. It dawned on me just the other day, listening to a voice note or a TikTok something, that it is almost 10 years. It is almost 10 years since we are producing oil in this country. Almost 10 years since we are producing oil in this country. And up until now, the citizens are not receiving a direct benefit, whether through improvement of wages and salaries, whether through improvement of social services, whether through a direct cash transfer. Almost 10 years and citizens are not receiving a direct benefit from the production of oil in this country. In a land of plenty, the citizens are really, really punishing. $5,000. I'm telling you these figures because I went to the market just over the weekend. $5,000 for a pound of celery. $800 a pound of shallot, and it depends on if you want the headless one or the head, the one with head. $260 a pound for what? $600 a pound for purple cabbage. And that list can go on. And these are basic things that people would use on a regular. They will tell me that bell peppers are a luxury. Only certain people can enjoy the flavor of bell peppers in their food. It's $1,400 a pound. And if you know bell peppers, especially the imported ones, one bell pepper could give you a pound. Sugar, $300 a pound. It's the dirtiest sugar I've seen in this country for quite a while. Or rice. That's staple. Rice, that's staple. From $1,700 a bag for a particular brand of parboiled rice, I think. It's now $29.80. Shame make they must take out the $20, $3,000. And this, when we talk about bag, we're talking about a sachet, maybe I think it's about 2.5 gallons. And so if it is 2.5 gallons, you're talking about rice going for $1,200, $1,200 a gallon. And those are basic nutritional requirement, if I can call it that, for a family. Milk, sugar, rice, salt. greens and vegetables, meats, madness in the market. But yet we are in the fastest growing economy. Yet every time you hear an utterance from the government, they're talking about this contract or that contract for the construction of this infrastructure, that infrastructure. Citizens are now getting a direct benefit from the resources. And you know what? The Barlet tyrant just admitted that it's quite possible that the oil will be depleted in another 10 years. It's quite possible before. Why? The projection was that you get a 20-year stretch with this oil. If we finish with 10 years, it means that we got about 10 years remaining, 10 to 11 years remaining. So we are saying, according to the Duns president, I remember an utterance coming from it that said public servants will get a better deal in 2027. 2027 is 3 years down the line. Are we saying that we have to wait for 13 years into oil production for citizens? And that is wages and salaries we're talking about. So for public servants, one group of citizens to start getting what one might consider something direct from the oil money. They took hundreds of millions of dollars from NIS and invested in the Borbis River Bridge with their friends for the benefit of their friends, not the benefit of NIS, nor the citizens of this country, for the benefit, financial benefit, economic benefit of their friends. It was a public-private partnership, PPP, build, own, operate, or something to that extent, or build, own, transfer after X number of years. So they took the nation's resources from NIS and other places. The country, the citizens, the contributors, the beneficiaries from NIS are not getting any benefit from that. But I guess that time is approaching for that bridge to be transferred, or for that arrangement to come to an end. They're talking about a new Borbis River crossing, a new Borbis bridge. Is it necessary? Is it absolutely necessary that we go full steam ahead to construct a new Borbis bridge at this time in the nation's development with the kind of money that they will have to expend? Or is it possible we can use that money to improve the lives and livelihoods of the Guyanese people? What I know from where I sit, I think the time has come for Guyanese to get their direct benefits from the oil resources. The Working People's Alliance has consistently said Guyanese should get at least $5,000 per household, $1 million per household per year. Comes down to just about $83,000 if I remember my calculation back then, per month for each household. It's not per individual, it's per household. So imagine the household of Lelauti and Nandlal and her husband Peters, I think his name is. Imagine that household of 3 getting a monthly financial supplement of about $83,000, let's say $84,000. How much would it have assisted in them meeting your financial needs, meeting the needs for resources to take care of that bedridden 50-plus-year-old individual, and the necessary medication and dietary supplements, etc., for the 73-year-old mother who was diabetic? What are the possibilities that would have contributed to that family having an easier time, and the mother seeing reason for living and hope for the future? But we're not using our resources to ease the burdens on our citizens. We're building with sand, stone, cement, and steel, and expect them to eat that. We call that development. Who can change it? Citizens. We can change it. How? By demanding more. How? By getting onto the streets to highlight the plight of the Guyanese people. How? By protesting or picketing within our communities to highlight the plight of our communities. Some people may not have the gumption to go national in terms of go and join a big picket in Georgetown. But can you organize neighborhood pickets? Invite the press into your neighborhoods. Have families speak about the challenges they are experiencing. Because even if you do it on such a small scale and you do it across the country, then people will start to see the bigger picture. Let us stop looking at those shiny projects. A hotel there, a hospital there, a road down there, a roundabout down there. They really are not changing people's lives. You have to start to work to improve people's quality of life. And only then we will prevent situations such as Lilauti and our daughter from happening. If you have a love for humanity, it's the least you can aspire for. It is the least you can aspire for. Give people a cushion. Soften the fall, soften the blows that they're feeling right now. With the rising cost of living in this society, don't try to justify it with foolish talk. And how much money is spent on developing sand, stone, and cement? I'll tell you more about that sandstone and cement story just now. Let me remind you about Ipadaji talks.
Do you want to know what happened in 1763 during the Berbice Revolution? On Saturday, August 31st, you can come and hear Professor Marjolaine Carrs, author of the book Blood on the River. This is your opportunity to learn what really happened hundreds of years ago, and you will hear it from the voices of those who were there. This is the first in the series of Ipadaji talks on issues relevant to our people. Call 223-8852 to 3 to reserve your seat. Ipadaji talks, celebrating our heroes. The Berbice Slave Revolution, Saturday, August 31st, Theatre Guild, Georgetown, 16 hours. That's 4 p.m.
Thank you. David Simon says he has been listening to this program and it makes some sense. But what happens after the oil runs out? That's what I want to hear. Can the economy sustain a 50% increase in salaries? Let's talk. I love questions like these. David Simon, I tell people over the years of my existence as an adult, from a young adult to current, I've been able to achieve things that will sustain me because of what I call prudent management of my resources. What do I consider prudent management of my resources? Every dollar I earn is a rule of thumb for me that I try to invest some of it. I try to invest some of it. Every dollar that I earn, I try to invest some of it. When I say some, because there's no specific amount. It depends on the time of the year, the time of the month, the time of the week. What are my pressing financial responsibilities at the time? And so you might find, for example, if I go there, well, I rent tables and chairs and tents and so on. Good? It's part of what provides to me. And I know, for example, I'm not going to get a table and tent and chair rented every day of the week or every day of the month. Sometimes in a month you rent 2-3 times. And so if I get a rental, that rental brings to me what I consider capital. Because it's not every day I have to buy tables, chairs, and tents to rent. And so that money which comes in, whatever residual value is left from it after you pay the expenses of transporting it in and out and delivery and cleaning and so on, I'll find something to invest that money in. Whether it is stock for Club Twilight, the bar at Club Twilight, whether it is a batch of what we call them black giant chickens, which will eventually produce eggs. And if I have a batch of black giant chickens which are producing eggs and I manage them properly, it means that they will reproduce because I will take the eggs and I will set them. And so the flock will get bigger and so on and so forth. I'm using these regular run-of-the-mill operations on a daily basis to say that if you're looking for sustainability from the resources that you're having now, you have to engage in prudent financial management. I'm not convinced that the PPP is engaged in prudent financial management of our oil resources especially. I'm of the opinion, and those who like to say, Mr. Amsterdam, you're not an economist and so on, and question my education and so on. I dare you to challenge me. Because I'm saying this. From where I sit and I'm looking at the PPP is digging some serious holes, financial holes, economic holes for the citizens of this country because they are borrowing on the prospect of our oil resources. It means that even what we are collecting on a monthly basis is already spent before you even get it. Old people say don't count your chickens before it hatch, and that is what the PPP is doing. Let's take, for example, what I consider prudent financial management, just as an example. A recent reference Mr. Jordan made, the $18 million US that was collected from ExxonMobil to pursue the Guyana border matter. By the time the coalition left office, if I'm remembering it and understanding it clearly, they had acquired $400,000 US at least, I would say, in interest, return on investments, let me call it that, from that money. If we look at the Natural Resource Fund Act that was passed under the David Granger administration, it prescribed, I think, that not more than 75% of the income from the oil industry should be expended at any given time. So in short, it means that there would have always been a residual value there, accumulating even interest from some international bank at some international rate. Now, a lot of people ask if we can sustain the economy or sustain the salary increases and so on that we're asking for, or people are asking for after oil is depleted. As if the only source of income for this country is, should, or will be from the oil resources. Salary increases, once we give them, once we agree to them, we know what the projections are. They're like fixed, what should I say, fixed expenses. Recurring, yeah, that's the word, recurring expenses. So we know what those recurring expenses will be for a period. All of the economics breaks, as they claim to be in the PPP, can therefore sit and project what investments need to be done to bring in income to satisfy those recurring expenses. That is how you run a house. That's how you run a cake shop. You hire somebody to work with you, you start projecting every month this person got to get $10. What do I need to do to guarantee that I will be able to pay them at the end of the month? All we are hearing from this government is spending out the resources on sand, stone, cement, and steel. And it sounds like there's a pun on the word steal there because they're also stealing it. So yes, I'm of the opinion that if managed prudently, if properly managed, this country will be able to use its resources after oil to sustain a 50% increase in wages and salaries at the current rate that people are being paid. At the current rate that people are being paid. Infrastructure is necessary to boost economic inflows and outflows. Infrastructure is necessary. You have to transport raw materials to the factories. You have to transport finished goods to the ports. That infrastructure is absolutely necessary. Stable electricity supply at a low cost is absolutely necessary if you're going to boost the economic output. Is that what the government is investing in? Is that where our money is being spent? How much success have we had in bringing down the cost of electricity and providing reliable electricity for the citizens of this country? How much success have we had in the quality of water and the reliability of the supply of water for the citizens of this country? Those things can boost the economic output of this country. Those things can contribute to higher earnings, which in turn will result in more taxes into the public purse, which will be able to contribute to sustaining these wages and salaries increases we're talking about. I don't want to get too technical. I just want you to understand the interrelationship and the quote-unquote synergies which need to take place for us to be able to sustain whatever increases after oil. It needs prudent financial management of the oil resources. What do we invest the oil resources in? Are we investing the oil resources or some of the oil resources in long-term, let me call them bonds, that will give you a certain return on those investments? It's like you're the head of a family, and every dollar that comes into your home, you take it and you eat it. You take it and you eat it. The money doesn't circulate 3 times. So you eat it and you shut it out. It's done. That's what this government doing with our oil resources. So if we want better, we have to demand better. Number one, we have to demand better from any government. Number two, we have to highlight where the foolishness is taking place and demand better for our communities and our homesteads, households, and so on. Number three, we have to really stand up as a people. Whether you're black, white, green, yellow, or brown, whether your preference of color is red or green, whether you prefer the PPP or the PNC, or the coalition, whatever your preference is, you need to recognize, we need to recognize that we have to stand together as Guyanese and defend our patrimony from these thieves and corruptors and incompetents. That is what we need to do. As they say, who will bail the cat? Who will bail the cat? Is it enough just to sit and highlight the problems? No. We have to act in it. We have to do something in it. Like I said, I think it's sustainable. I want to discuss one issue now before I open up the lines. One other issue. Coffee yesterday talked about Charandas and party members signing what I will call charters and codes of conduct and so on to prevent actions like those of Charandas. I disagree. I said, and I'm repeating it. No charter, no party code of conduct could stop a Charandas from doing what a Charandas did in the National Assembly. As long as that person sits in the National Assembly as a front bencher with voting right, they will vote. Irregardless, they will vote according to how they want to vote. That is why there is something called division of the House. What is division of the House or conscience vote? Usually when a vote is taken in Parliament, you hear those who are in favor say aye. And if they shout of the ayes, and louder they say the ayes have it. And if you're not clear whether which side is more by that shout, you say, let's have a division, let's have a division, let's take the votes individually. Like Dr. Barton Scotland did when they were doing the no confidence vote. Every member was canvassed individually. What's your vote? What's your vote? What's your vote? What's your vote? Now you tell me which party charter, which code of conduct could stop a Charandas from saying yes, 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 when the Speaker of the House asks the question, how do you vote? Like Barton Scotland said at the time, I think, not quoting him directly, it's not baby party. We can't take back the vote. We can't pause the vote for recreational purposes. The only way to prevent that from happening, a Charandas situation from happening, is ensuring that the people you have in your boat are people who are rowing in the same direction and who will row in the same direction whether the waters become choppy or they remain calm. How you do that? There are several ways. You can do it by fair means or you can do it by foul means. If people know that there are going to be repercussions for certain kinds of behavior against the people of the country, then they might stay in line, they might stay the course. It's Kofi's belief, and I'm sure it's the belief of others, that the National Assembly, because it has all of these standing orders and rules and regulations and so on, those rules and regulations and so can prevent it. No, it can't. And I'll give you a good example. When there were certain elements in the National Assembly who were squatting on seats of both the PPP and the PNC, I think it was Robert Corbyn and maybe Jagdio who agreed that they were going to go to the National Assembly and pass the Recall Act, where the political party can recall a member from Parliament. You all remember that? I think during the elections fiasco that came before the CCJ, and it was ruled to be unconstitutional. I think that's the word. So even the right of recall, as established in that which I'm calling the Recall Bill, Recall Act, was deemed unconstitutional by the courts. Undemocratic. And so you tell me which charter, which code of conduct from any political party will prevent a Charandas situation happening now or in the future. I'm sure there are means. I'm sure there are means. But don't worry the charter and code of conduct business. Sometimes, like I say, there are fair ways and there are foul ways of getting, what's the word I'm looking for? Let me just say, people to toe the line. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. You're tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. I see why they call you Flash God. You're always first out of the block. Good morning. You're live.
Yes, good morning. Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you. Flash Gordon?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you. Whatever you are playing in your background, please take it off or reduce the volume.
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Good morning to you and all my African brothers and sisters in Guyana. First, let me say this. My black brother and sister, you have to start love your money and start like yourself. Start love yourself. Stop like yourself and stop like your money. Do it for 90 days and you will see what Flat Garden talking about. You will benefit from it and get good results. Move on, Flat Garden. I was listening to Mark program last night. When I finished, when Mark sick last night, well, not even good. Why? The bathroom that Mark showed Flat Garden last night, I don't know if anybody else.
When you look at Strong Hope, Sorry, go ahead.
Without every name. That where these young, them little innocent Amerindian children have to learn to climb in that age for do number one and number two. It is shame and disgrace. The play they have to sit down to learn to spell their name and to learn to spell cat and rat. It is shame and disgrace. The water that what they got to drink is shame and disgrace. And Mark, I'm asking you, I don't use the word beg. My grandma slapped him out a lot. I said, don't beg me. I'm your grandson. Ask me for something if I have to give it to you. I'm asking you this morning, Mark, continue to play that tree video. And the one that input, what that under the sun, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. Let the world, let the Caribbean people, the CARICOM, them see what the wicked government doing to black people, children, and the Amerindian children. You know, where are ERC if them see what the government is doing to children today in Guyana? Where are them pandit, the man of God? Them Muslim, them, the man of God. Where are them Christian, man of God and First Lady Deacon? Y'all cannot write the president and say enough is enough. It is children. You guys studied the Bible before. Who bigger than Flat Garden? Study the Bible before. I studied from King James. When Jesus said, suffer the children not, suffer the children not. I'm predicting this morning what God did to Pharaoh. God could do it again for let my people go, for stop Jack Dill and his supporters them for punishing black people children and the Amerindian children. God does forgive, but you don't forget. It is shame and disgrace. Where are these people then in the country? Why? Before George Bush leave, he tell Flat Garden Plain, who is not with me against me? These places, these names are called them against the children and the teachers and the noise them in Guyana. And the Amerindian children them in Guyana. All of them against them. And that's what God don't love. I predict soon and very soon, Guyana could be worse like Haiti with fire and smoke up in the air. It is time for black people begin to teach how your children must sacrifice. Teach them what government is doing. And anytime fire and smoke could happen because God don't like it. God don't like it. Let it don't believe because we are slave people. That's it with us and God. No. It's the same slave people make them children and sit 29 and 27 subject every year and pass it. My message today to the government, God finished speaking to you and God will start for acts. Because are you suffering children? Are you suffering teachers? Are you suffering nurses? Remember what God did. Remember what God did. And I predict it could be fire and smoke. That song, I can't take it anymore. That song going to cause the third world war in Guyana very soon. Thank you very much for your day, for your time.
Thank you for your call. The lines remain open. 6225-933 is the number to call.
Good morning, Brother Kidaki. Good morning, viewers. Brother Kidaki, that caller was calling from the Namsal Friday. I said that all the absent leader wouldn't welcome in the Namsal.
Call over the line.
If a crapo or a water frog told the absent leader, we will always welcome the crapo or the water frog. So Mr. Arbery make a difference. We will welcome anybody here in the Namsal from the opposition who look like us, who fight for us, who never ever murderous. You understand me? So that caller, it's a shame on that caller. The Namsol is a village that belongs to the opposition. Most naturally, the PNCR, always. We never go against the PNC or the opposition. You understand me? So you gotta be a slave, the slave catcher. I want the our slave call in and say that. You can see the back of them. This time when the Namsel come in. This time we don't warn them already. This time you can see the back of them. You understand me? You can see the real back of them this time. And right now, they don't even want to see them or hear them. You got the slave catcher, rob all of them. Rob the 10 days work, the 10 days workers, he robbed all of them. And all the money he get to give to the small business people and himself, he robbed all of them. So he will never ever get that few of the people that he had local government election. And the reason why people don't come out, reason why they didn't come out local government election, because they didn't understand local government election. The people who in charge of the PNC and the NAMCEL, they didn't go around and inform the people them how important local government election was. So this time around, you don't have nothing to get. I was on a video when the install president went to the NAMCEL and I see the people them, the house slave, the slave catchers them, the house slave that went wrong the install president. And there is a couple of people that welcome in the PPP in the NAMCEL. There is a couple of people. So I was on a video on Wednesday. So viewers, y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you for that voice. Now the lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. You tune to the Guyanese Morning Time. Let me remind you that. Let me remind you that there's a Cash App, $KAMSTV, that you can lend your financial support to. And there's also Zelle, which is 862-373-5187 in the name of your donor. Put your dollar, make your dollar come. Good morning.
Yeah, I got a piece of paper to come for you.
All right, I'll call you.
You want to send to MMG?
Yes, you could send it to MMG if it's okay. Thank you. Good. We'll talk. Call you live. Good morning. The lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. You tune to the Guyanese Morning Time. Call you live.
Hey, good morning to that. How's it all doing? So I just wanted to touch on one issue that I see has been creating quite stir. There's a lot of people that have been expressing an interest in alternatives to the PNC. The PNC has been receiving overwhelming support from the opposition community. For the past 3 decades, they have failed in many respects to deliver tangible results. And a lot of people are disappointed and disaffected. So some of them are exercising their options to explore other parties. Me personally, I support the WPA. I believe that the WPA have a caliber of freedom fighters. And my goodness, yesterday's program with Dr. HINDS that's a must watch. I encourage every opposition person, regardless of whichever party you align yourself with, to watch that program. It was a phenomenal expose of the reality of the political situation by Dr. Dr. David Hinds. Now, in the final analysis, Kadaki, I believe that when there are two names on the ballot, the PPP and anyone else, every person in their rational thinking mind will absolutely not for the PPP. The stir that we are experiencing now, I don't believe people are saying that Aubrey Norton or whoever else is not worthy of leading Guyana. It's people are fighting to see, people are looking to see who's the best candidate that can actually win the election, not who is governable or who has the ability to govern. So that's the stage we're at right now. So there's no need for the hand wringing. People going to other parties is a positive thing because they're still being politically engaged. The last thing you would want is people who are not politically engaged whatsoever. Those are harder to win over. The people if the PNC believe they're doing a fantastic job, why are they worried? You ain't got to worry. You're supposed to go out there and make the case. And if you're making the case for why you should be empowered, then you will get the support you want. And for heaven's sake, they need to stop cussing out every person that expressed a disappointment in Norton or the leadership of the PNC. You're against Burke, you're against Melly Mel, you're against every person that has anything to say. That's not how you build a coalition. Then you're going to say everyone must just collate with Norton. It doesn't work like that. That's not a realistic position. That is a completely unrealistic position. And like I said, in the final analysis, I believe that people will come around to, we understand what's at stake here. No one is foolish. We will never support or strengthen the hands of the PPP. And people will make the right choice. Regardless of whatever party they associate with, they will make the right choice at the end of the day. That's what I got to say to that. You keep doing what you're doing, and I hope you have a rerun of yesterday's program. Very important.
Thank you. Thank you for that call. You know, I grew up here in Shortcut the Skill. But I also know if you're heading to a particular destination, there are different routes to get there. Right? There are different routes to get there. You and your crew could be going to the creek, and some decide they're going to go by boat, some decide they're going to go by truck, some decide they're going to fly. Some decide they could just swim across the other creek and get to the creek that you're going to. What is important is that they're all heading to the creek. We might use different destinations to get to the creek. And so I will continuously say, I don't understand why we're cussing one another, why we're fighting one another on the issue of who should lead or who will lead. At the end of the day, I'm saying this. We all need each other to put the PPP out of office. And if we can't conceptualize in our heads by now that we all need each other, regardless of who we are supporting for leader, then we are doing ourselves a disservice. We are doing ourselves a disservice. Listen, in the 11th hour leading up to the election, the very leaders that we are cussing each other over will sit at the table and they will work their salvation out. I am saying that. The earlier they do it, it is better for everyone. But at the end of the day, it will be done. It has to be done. If they are serious about wanting to put the PPP out of office, it has to be done. Why are we concerning ourselves or fighting over who at the end of the day will lead the charge. For me, the end justifies the means. I don't care who lead. So long as they're leading to victory. That's my position. Call your life.
Yeah, good morning, Kadaki. When you started this morning, you spoke about the murder suicide, and that is very sad. You know, Guyana copies everything. They got summer. Well, I'm waiting till they get them fall this year because they got summer right now. They got grade school, everything they got to outside that. But the fundamental things that outside has, Guyana don't have. Because when you get a handicapped child, outside, they assist you as much as possible with that child. Probably the mind of the mother, with the decision that she had to make, it's real rough. She must see, you had a feeling, me got long more to live. And should I leave this child here, who is solely dependent on me, let I make certain both of us go to a different place. Now, with that being said, if this woman was allowed to be counseled, because when you got people like these or children like these or relatives like these, at some time it does get what they call burnout, where you sit down and you study all kinds of things. The mental fatigue, the financial fatigue, the physical fatigue in looking after an individual like this. And probably the mother went to that. And coupling all that she had there, she decided end this dance once and for all. And to our remaining relatives, I extend profound sympathy. I don't want to say she right to do what she do, but that was her way of putting an end to 52 years. And there is where people in position, but the installed regime has no empathy in them, none whatsoever. Because if they had empathy, you see them 19 girls who were murdered by fire in the bush in Maja, that would have never happened. You heard of the lives of those Amerindian girls, teenagers, bathing in the open, bathing in bushes in the open. And if this installed regime, and I always talk about it, they have no love for women. And the other day when I mentioned about the Muslims and so, the CGIC also ever wrote me a letter to ask me to come to them and apologize. I went nowhere. Because if you got young women, you're going to look when a woman is young, she got pride, she got dignity in herself. She got the pride and dignity. And if you're going to allow women on a daily basis, at least twice a day, to go out in the open and bathe, where any and everybody could see her, what are you doing to that woman's pride? Eventually, when the family murdered got them born to death, they took their remains, women again, and built roads. That is how this installed regime treat a woman. Look what goes on in the National Assembly, where they got the parliament. They're cussing women, the offering them dildo. This installed regime has no love for women. They go outside and they put up how they're looking after abused women. And when the outer world see, oh, Guyana got a good thing, they send in billions and billions of dollars. And when those money comes to Guyana, it goes into private people pockets. We all know that. So the woman, I sorry for the woman. And when it comes down, people talking about the up and coming election, I pray and I hope that before we could go to the election, we must know what type of elections we are going to. If we are going to an election where there is no privacy of our ballots, we got to use phones or cameras to show who we have voted for. I was at Congress Place. You had cameras in the place, but you did not see who the persons voted for. You need that to be ironed out from GCOM. GCOM has now got to say, and this is the opportune time to say the type of election they want for the 2020. If our election must be decided on opening the ballot boxes and counting all the bad votes, putting them to give an installed regime, or are we going back to what used to be ROPO, where our votes are being counted at the poll station to election day, and that give us an answer. And I pray that all lawyers, you see, I was annoyed when coming up just now, PNC had this big thing with the lawyer, everybody fighting to be at the top. You see, since the Congress is finished, we're not hearing anything about the senior council. And there is where when an election is over, many persons do become permanent enemies. And once you want the good for our country, I think there are certain things that we should not get into. Fighting for leadership. Because when one win, the other one going to get vexed. Now there is where we needed the senior council and other like-minded lawyers like the senior council to march on GCOM and let GCOM give us a proper response for the up-and-coming general and regional elections. What are we voting for and how our votes will determine the new persons to rule us. And we must stop fighting within. And I believe that, AFC had a role and many people always looking to see what was done. When the coalition, they had WPA, and I think the grudge from years and years ago came up when they became a coalition. And that reared its ugly head within APNU. And I pray that we can sit down as big people and put our differences aside and come together for the good of all Africans in Guyana, all the people that begins with A, not the Africans alone, the Amerindians too, because we see where our Amerindian brothers are being given the blunt of the sword, and also Indians who may decide not to be a part of the PPP. So we got to really come together and try to grab these people and come together in a cooperative way to move this country forward.
Thank you. The lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. I mean, Rwanda keeps harping on this camera in the boot situation. I really and truly don't think it has anything to do with GCOM, It got to do with the people themselves, right? It has to do with the people themselves. Because the story is that people are making agreements with the PPP or were making agreements with the PPP allegedly to sell their votes, and as proof of them receiving their payment, they have to take a photo of their ballot and show the photograph as proof that they voted the way they said they will vote. And elections are supposed to be free. Free, in that every voter has a right to vote how he or she feels fit. And if people choose to vote for the PPP and take a photograph, well, they'll vote for the PPP and take a photograph. Will it stop them from voting for the PPP if they didn't have to take a photograph? Or if they didn't agree to take a photograph? My belief is no. They're going to vote for whoever they want, whether for money as an incentive or whether out of free will. So this phone and camera and photograph business, I have not really and truly to do with GCOM as far as I'm concerned. Call A Live, good morning.
It came out very nice and the way you wanted it. That was very good. And keep up the good work. Kadaki, with that lady that committed suicide to herself and their daughter, Guyana does not have, it's not big on social services because if I would like to say, if the U.S. is supporting Guyana, there's things that what the U.S. stand for, they should make sure that the government stand for those same things because social services is very important. And especially you have kids in this country that they didn't ask to be born, but unfortunately they're born with some type of illness. And sometimes the parents have to go and work. They brought a program where you have someone to come into your own and look at your child while you go to work. Or they provide money that you can able to pay somebody to ask that person if you want to go out or do whatever you want to come in your own. Now they have a program that I think somebody else come up. There's another program where people can take you can have family member take care of your elderly parents who are sick and at home. You don't have to take them in a nursing home anymore. They pay you to take care of it. It's advertising all over the news. These are things that Americans really do not. I don't understand. They put these people in there. What? They want to kill us out? Get rid of us? Why? I don't understand that. Kadaki, I hope and pray when this government change, there are certain things that what you are talking about. You sit down at the table with them and make sure to cross your T's and dot your I's and then block these things up that regardless of who government go in, cannot change laws and rules. In America, you think, oh, how much votes we have here and how much time people, nobody cannot change those.
Morning, neighbor, morning, are you morning? Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. It is 24 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour on the 28th day of August in the year 2024. How you been? How was your last night? How was your yesterday? How you make out yesterday, really? Things tight in this country. Things tight in this country. 8 stem celery for $500. You could understand, no? 8 stem celery for $500. I see Lisa Prasad saying that, hey, why are you talking about celery is $3,000 and $5,000 a pound, and so you don't cook a pound of celery every day. According to Lisa Prasad calculation, is what 63 cents an ounce or $63 an ounce or something. And you don't cook 2 pints of rice every day. Lisa Prasad and our government, you don't cook a gallon of rice every day. Lisa Prasad and our government wants us. They want us to live hand to mouth. We must go and buy $100 celery in the morning for cook. And we must buy a pint of rice and quarter pint of oil. Gone were those days. Gone were those days, Lisa Prasad. But it's Wednesday morning. Dr. Hines is in the house. And so I'm not going to be dealing with Lisa Prasad and her issues now. But trust me, maybe tomorrow morning I'm going to address her with the cost of living and this nonsensical idea. You know, we're going to talk about that. Dr. Hines, welcome to the program. How are you doing?
Good morning.
You are in a position where I'm only seeing the top of your lip and your head, sir. Very well. That's
Good
a bit.
morning.
That's a bit better. Oh, you know, boy. How going on with you? Oh, you got them. Let's talk. It's a week or so since we last talked, and a lot has happened from that time to now. At the top of the agenda, I dare say, is what has happened to the teachers. We noticed that, as some people say, out of left field, when it was least expected, that the agreement for that 10% increase was going to be signed, because there was visible divisions among members of the General Council and the teachers themselves, union membership, were certainly not satisfied with that offer and had instructed, according to my understanding, the union leadership to reject it. So when we were expecting, or the society was expecting, that, as we like to say, the union was going to hold out for a better deal, out of the blues, we learned that the agreement was signed, even in the midst of division, because we learned that the general secretary, among others, walked out of the meeting where the signing took place and so on. I know for a fact that you've been following the teachers' issue. What are your thoughts on what transpired there? What are your thoughts on how such, I want to call it, deception, disrespect for the membership of the union can be prevented in the future?
But I don't know how it can be prevented in the future. What I do know is that it is part of a long tradition of trade unions in Guyana and the English-speaking Caribbean betraying their members. It is an old. In the old days, they used to call some of the unions company unions. These were unions who colluded with the companies where their membership worked. And they used to call them company unions. Well, after independence, the governments came into being. These unions began to collude with governments. In many regards, the trade unions themselves were part of the political parties. Trade unions preceded political parties. A lot of the political parties in the Caribbean were what you call the political arm of the unions. So when these political parties came into being, in a sense, they owned a lot of the unions. And so when these parties got into power and became the government, the unions had split allegiance to their workers or allegiance to the political party. And ultimately, they would come down on the side of the political party. So we've had this long tradition of unions selling out their workers. By the 1960s, 70s, and 80s in Guyana, workers, especially in the bauxite industry, began to take action outside of their unions. There were two unions in the industry. And between 1966 and 1970, I hope I'm getting my dates right, there were about 40 odd strikes that were called by the workers. They used to call them wildcat strikes, where workers would call strikes without their union. And that continued well into the 1980s in the bauxite industry. At one time in the 1960s, late 1960s or 1970, the ASCREA
group in Linden would call strikes at the bauxite industry because their unions were, quote unquote, in bed with the government of the day. And so what happened here continued that long tradition of trade unions and political parties singing out of the same hymn sheet, and the unions leaving their workers high and dry. So that historical footnote ought to be noted here. I think the teachers pushed this thing as far as they could push it. And they got elements within the leadership of the union to be on their side, led by Coretta McDonald and others. They held the teachers' line in the executive. We had been hearing rumblings that the other faction, led by President Light, had wanted to throw in the towel a long time. Remember, they called the teachers off the streets, and they wanted at that time, from our understanding, to really sign an agreement. But they were held off by the militancy of the teachers and the militancy of sections of the leadership. And so, therefore, in the end, there was a maneuver. We understand that a meeting of the General Council was called. They were given 4 hours notice. It was called early in the morning at 6 o'clock, a 10 o'clock meeting. And some of the members of the executive who were opposed to the signing of an agreement in the form that eventually was signed did not get to attend that meeting. And it was at that meeting that a majority was concocted based on what was reported to them, and they agreed that that an agreement should be signed. Now, although the faction that did not want the agreement to be signed went to the membership, and the membership instructed that the union should accept nothing less than, I think, 29%, 26%. The decision by the General Council was binding. You would have had to go back to the General Council to ask them to overturn their decision. Some would argue that the teachers at their meeting and their decision that the union should not accept less than 26%, that should be binding. But the argument is that that meeting did not constitute an official members' meeting. And so therefore, the General Council decision carried. And the President and Vice President and others went and signed the agreement. So I think that points to the crisis in trade unionism in Guyana, that workers have lost interest. They don't have confidence in the union leadership. And so, lack of confidence in the union leadership and the government crushing of the power of the union leave workers in Guyana vulnerable public service workers, very vulnerable, as we can see. In effect, the agreement that was signed was the agreement that was the proposal that the government initially made that drove the workers to go on strike. Remember, it was 6.5%. 10% is nowhere substantially different from the 6.5%. So what drove the teachers on strike eventually is what the union signed. The government got its way. Its initial proposal carried the day. Its refusal to bargain for 5 years between 2019 and 2023. It got its way there. It got its way with the percentage that it gave. And so really the agreement was not a negotiated settlement. A negotiated settlement would have been something like this. The government offers 10%. The teachers say 39%. You negotiate, eventually you give them 25%. The teachers give 15%, the government gives 15%. And it falls there around 25, which is close to what the teachers said they want. That would have been a negotiated settlement. But that is not what occurred here. It is the government proposal that was signed. The union really negotiated nothing for its workers, for its membership. If you look at the allowances, which the government is touting, you look at the allowances, the teachers' union had put forward proposals for the allowances. And when you look at what the government eventually gave them, it was substantially lower than what the teachers had proposed. So even at the level of the allowance, the government got its way. What the government gave us, the allowance, is far less than what the teachers' union had proposed. So even this allowance thing that the government is touting is really substantially less than what the teachers wanted. And when you look at the allowance really is, the allowances are weighted. First of all, the allowances, as I said, are not substantial. Second, they are weighted towards the group of teachers that have master's degrees and PhD, which is the percentage of teachers with masters and PhD, very, very low. I don't think it's more than 5% of the teaching staff. There are very few teachers that have PhD. There are some that have masters. So I think it's about 5 to 7% that really the allowances, the meager allowances, the majority of it is going just to that small percentage. The more than 90% of the teachers, really the allowances are negligible. So you have a negligible increase in wages, negligible allowances, and so really the teachers got nothing.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. Indeed, when you look at the offers of allowances, which the government seems to want to make its case on, that they're giving so many quote-unquote non-salaried benefits and so on, the benefits really and truly are not benefits across the board. They're not benefits across the board. They're for specific and Coretta, the General Secretary, was here last Friday, and she explained that even for example, the duty-free concessions that they've given, a lot of those concessions have already been used up, right? They've already been used up. And a very small number perhaps is left, and only a small number of people can benefit from them. When you look at, all right, this thing is signed. Are the teachers bound by it from your reading?
Well, the teachers are not bound by anything. The union has signed an agreement, and it is legal, but the teachers can reject it, and they control their leadership and put in place new leadership and instruct them to renegotiate the contract. The workers can take control of their unions and do anything. It is only binding insofar as the present executive agrees to it. The present leadership, they signed it, they agreed to it, but the workers can recall their leadership and put in place new leadership to go and negotiate for them.
Okay, good. So possibly renegotiation. But Dr. Hines, the, as I would say, mistreatment of public servants and more particularly teachers continue from this government. I was saying yesterday that instead of addressing the plight of the people in terms of the cost of living and the need to adjust wages and salaries to livable levels, the government apparently prefers to invest in sandstone and cement and so on. We noticed recently the announcement that they're going to be building or proposing to build a new Borbis River Bridge. I noticed an invitation. I have an invitation in my inbox from somebody who sent it to me. They're talking about signing the agreement for the reconstruction of the Linden-Suzdijk Highway. Today, that agreement is supposed to be signed. As an aside, the 10-day workers are compelled, from Linden, the 10 days workers are compelled to attend that signing ceremony, which obviously really truly has nothing to do with them, but they're compelled to do so. We have all the arguments of no fiscal space to give teachers better wages and salaries and all of that, but yet we are seeing all of this spending and a continued ill treatment, as I call it, of teachers and public servants. The WPA, among other opposition parties, is certainly waiting to replace the PPP government. As we like to say, the opposition should be a government in waiting. You, as the presidential candidate of the Working People's Alliance, a co-leader, what's the position of the WPA in terms of dealing with wages and salaries for the populace in general, and in particular, teachers?
Well, before we get to that, the first part of your formulation that talks about the government spending on infrastructure while not spending on wages for public servants. You see, that comes out of a particular thinking. It must be emphasized that the PPP may be cruel, but they're not crazy. What they're doing is part of a larger view, a larger worldview, a larger plan for Guyana. The attitude to wages for public servants. In the old days, the governments used to say they don't have the money. That used to be the rationale for not paying public servants better wages. Some of the economists would cite things like inflation, that too much money in the system may not be good, and so So those were the two rationales for not raising the wages of workers. The governments didn't have money, and the economists were talking a lot about inflation. Now, in the present era, the government does have a lot of money. And I'm reliably informed from economists that the threat of inflation arising from increased wages is not as threatening as it was, let's say, 20 years ago. And the economists can explain that. So the conditions have changed. Although the conditions have changed, the government is still holding on to not paying public service workers more. Why? The government is of the view that public servants, including teachers and government workers and policemen and women and so on, they do not produce tangible goods and services. And so therefore, the investment, the return from the investment in teachers and public servants is not as great as, let's say, you invest in sugar workers who are producing sugar cane and so on, or construction workers who are building things. So they're making a distinction between categories of workers that public servants are not productive in a direct way as other categories of workers. So that's part of the worldview. When you couple that with the fact that public servants, including teachers, belong to an ethnic group that is not part of the natural constituency of the ruling party, it means that the ruling party does not see itself as having the responsibility of upgrading the well-being of that section, because they're not going to vote for them. It explains why the government treats sugar workers and deals with the sugar workers' unions differently from public servants and their unions. Because they're not going to vote for you. You don't have any incentive politically to upgrade them. So that's the second factor at work here. The third factor at work is the ethnic factor. The PPP leadership, for the most part, comes out of the Indian Guyanese community, and it adopts a worldview, an Indianist worldview, that sees the two ethnic groups in competition, and the government sees part of its responsibility is to ensure that the competing ethnic group is not empowered. So when you take those three factors, the ethnic factor, the political factor, and the economic thinking, then you understand the attitude of the government to teachers. Let me repeat. One, teachers are not productive, according to the government's thinking. And so therefore, the return from investing in them is not as great as if you invest in construction workers or sugar workers, or as the case may be. So that's number one. Number two, these workers are not in your political camp. They're not going to vote for you. And governments, by their very nature, look after their supporters first. And insofar as they look after the others, they look after them afterwards. So looking after the welfare, the general welfare of public servants is not in the political interest of the PPP. It doesn't bring them dividends. They don't get votes. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is the ethnic factor, where we have ethnic competition for resources. And the PPP comes out of one ethnic community. And so naturally it would aid and abet and give advantage to its own ethnic group in competition with other ethnics. So when you put those three factors together, I hope viewers are getting a clearer view of what drives the PPP. You see, understandably, people cause Jack Dio, they cause Ali, they cause the PPP, they cause this body, they cause that body, and so on and things. And indeed, Jack Dio and them need plenty cussing. But the danger with that approach is that we feel that if you remove Jack Dio and you put another member of the PPP, things will improve, it will change. And it will not. It will not. The PPP is moving from a coherent set of values that creates a worldview that is driving their action in government. So, understandably, I am not telling people they mustn't cuss Jack Dio and so on. I cuss it too. But the limitations of that approach is that it ignores the programmatic and the coherent set of ideas and values that drive the PPP. So that if Jack Dio is removed, it doesn't make a difference, because the philosophy is what is driving them. So when you look at the way they've dealt with the teachers, and you ask yourself, why are they so stubborn? Why are they not giving an inch? You have to take those three factors into consideration. You have to take those three factors into consideration.
I'm here.
Yeah.
The other part of the question was the WPA's how was the WPA's position on wages and salaries in general, and particularly how it intends to deal with the teachers' issue in terms of.
Well, we feel wages are important in Guyanese context, and generally speaking, because of the high cost of living. Prices in the market are very high. The market determines prices. And so therefore, if you're a government, how do you deal with that? Do you regulate the market? As some countries have done in the old communist countries, they regulate the market. And even in capitalist countries, they do regulate the market to some extent. But the government has two choices. Do you interfere with the market to bring down prices or stall prices? Or do you take another approach? That is to put more money in the pockets of the citizens so that they can afford the goods and services in the market. As I've said repeatedly on this program and my own program, that when we talk about the high cost of living, we are in effect talking about low wages. The cost of living is high because your wages do not permit you to afford the things in the market. If your wages were higher, you could then afford things in the market. And that in effect is what we may call loosely a lowering of the cost of living. Because the cost of labor, a la salaries and wages, has gone up and is almost on par with the cost of living. So workers will be able to break even if their wages allow them to afford the things in the market. And so it's on that basis that we feel that wages and salaries are an important aspect of mitigating the high cost of living. Now, there are other things the government can do. The government can give incentives to producers, to importers, can give, if the government were to make it cheaper to transport agricultural products from farm to market. The understanding, if you build roads and make it easier, then the farmers will be able to bring down their prices, right? And so governments can take that route and do take that route. They, can decrease taxes on imports, and in some instances, they take out the taxes altogether. The hope is that those who are producing or selling goods in the market, when they get these government ease, that would then lead to a lowering of prices. Well, experience has shown that doesn't happen. It doesn't trickle down. The companies take the government relief and they don't necessarily lower prices. In many cases, in most cases, once prices go up, they stay up. They don't come back down. And so we in the WPA feel that the better approach is to invest in increased wages and salaries to help the people mitigate the high cost of living. And that is why we support a universal basic income, in the sense that workers, citizens, are guaranteed an income, a basic income. All citizens are guaranteed that income. And if you are employed, your income from your employment helps. So a universal basic income ensures that there is always money in the hands of workers, and there's adequate money in the hands of workers to deal with inflation, to deal with high cost of living, etc. That is why we have proposed the cash transfer, where you take a small percentage of the revenue from oil and you give that directly to the workers, to the citizens, to families. to use it how they see it fit to use. What you're doing is that you are making money available to the workers. You're making money available to your citizens. All the time, you're doing that. And the ultimate intention is for people to be able to mitigate the high cost of living and ultimately to get them out of an impoverished state. You see, we have that high rate of poverty. Close to 50% of our people are impoverished. They are living on $5.50 US, that is 1,100 Guyana dollars or less. And if you're earning $1,100, $1,000 a day, it means that at the end of the month, it's really $28,000 you're earning. What can $28,000 do when you look at the prices in the market? Now, if you give the workers a cash transfer and they get $1 million as cash transfer, that's a windfall for them. It means the debt that they're in. It means the things that they're denying themselves, proper nutritional food. We just saw the damning report that the majority of our people are not eating well. Imagine if that person who's earning $1,000 a day now gets $1 million. They're able to buy better food. They're able, when I was a boy, and probably still know, I was in the Chinese restaurant the other day, and I hear somebody call for chop suey. I said, what? They still get chop suey? And the girl tell me she just buy it for she dad. But chop suey, we used to buy that as small buys and so on. You get a little small piece you can't afford. You can't afford the fried rice and the lo mein. This chop suey that just make it with ends meat. And we used to buy that as small buys. And so imagine if you now get a cash transfer that is coming in. You're not buying chop suey. You're not going to buy better Chinese food. Instead of having to miss work because you don't got nobody to stay with your child, your young child, you're able now to send that child to daycare because you cannot afford it. And I can go on and on and on. And so therefore, in the WPA, we are very big on the increase in wages. Now, we are not oblivious to things like inflation, with too much money chasing less goods and so on. That is always a possibility. But we feel that that is not the case in Guyana. And so we are erring on the side of increasing the wages of workers, all workers, but especially public servants who have been left behind for decades. The public servants are accustomed to getting 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6%. And when that accumulates over time, that's what we call it starvation wages. Because that is in effect what you are paying public servants, what you're paying teachers. And so therefore, we err on the side of wages. Now, if we have anything to do with government, and we hope we do, if we have anything to do with the education sector, and we hope we do, if we are part of a new government, one of the areas we would like to take charge of is education. And the very first thing we will do is to call the union in, the public service unions, call the teachers union in. And that 39% that the teachers are asking, and I think 30% for next year and 30% for next year, we called them and we said, we're giving you that. As a start, we are giving you that. Then the second thing we will do is work with the teachers to upgrade their salaries to the level of the average at the CARICOM level. We have seen those numbers from CARICOM countries. Some are higher than some, but all of them higher than Guyana. We will take the average of what teachers are earning in the CARICOM countries, and we will upgrade, work with the union. We're not imposing anything. Work with the union to upgrade. There'll be budgetary considerations that will determine whether we do it as a lump sum or we do it incrementally over a year or so. But we would be committed to giving the teachers what they are now asking for. Maybe next year, if there's a new government next year, the teachers may up that a little, given the changes in cost of living, etc. Whatever the number is, if and when we take government, we sign off on that with the teachers, and then work with bringing them at a minimum to bringing them on par with the CARICOM counterparts. And we feel that if we do that, it will be a shot in the arm for the education sector. Because one, we would be able to attract a higher quality of teacher into the system. That is more people who, all those people who are 20 subject and 28 subject, if we can get some of them into the education sector, it will help. So one is to attract more qualified teachers coming out of the high school system, the school system. And second is to retain what you have. Because if you are working as a teacher in Guyana for the same money that the Bahamas teacher working, you ain't gonna leave your family and go to the Bahamas. You're getting the same money here. You stay with your family. So if you pay better wages, you attract more qualified people into the profession, and you retain what you have. So we believe that the resuscitation of the dysfunctional education system, the first step to resuscitating the system is to improve considerably the wages and the salaries of the teachers. First step in resuscitating the education system. Hello? Hello?
Like somebody want to jump the gun. Let me help you, sir. Call it your life. You jumped the gun, but your life.
I don't come apologize to that. I got on the road like a call earlier. Now, what Dr. Hines saying is so true. But listen to this other part of Dr. Hines that I understand. It will fail. As long as the government decide to raise the wages of any public service in any area, automatically the commodities in the supermarket and the stores gone from $4 to $7. What was $7 gone to $10. You better believe what I'm saying to you. So I don't know how it's gonna happen. Because remember now, if you can't control the price control area, even if you give them money to $500,000 a month, the people in the mini market and the stores and the hardware stores will start seeing from $70 or $80 and $500. You can't come saying to you. And then the quarter seeing from $500 to $700. Everything will raise 45%. You can't tell you as well. Same that guy is saying is right what he's saying. Look at the other side of the coin. Okay? And now the government have no control over the private sector and giving them like authority because listen to this and Dr. Hines. Many times they hear something like peas or chana or oil skews. What happened within the next 2 weeks? If a market item was 400, it got to 550. If a pint of peas was 300, it got to 500. Just within a couple of weeks, a couple of days. That's because, you know why? It's a coordination. It's a secret plan. The thing is scary, so you will not play now. You gotta raise it. You gotta bring it to them. And whoever doing the business, like if a man selling a little piano or a man cooking a little food, whatever it is, right? You gotta go and buy because customers depending on him. So just to use this morning when you a pound sell you 5,000, 4,000, whatever it is, I call it telling you one of the PPP bag of my telling you if it's going to pound sell you. Just to show the intelligence of Guyanese is so poor. Right? They look at the long term, they look at the short term. You won't cook a pound of celery. Impossible. Yeah. So we try to say now, whoever they're trying to say, that if you buy a pound of celery for $5,000, you're going to last a week or 2 weeks to give to me. Then looking at your needs, what you need to achieve within the period of time. Okay? So, however, Mr. Clark and Dr. Hines, I have a good program. Dr. Hines, you have a good foresight. We're going to look at the other side of the time. Whenever they decide to raise anybody money.
Point made, caller.
Right, all right, then have a blessed day.
Thank you. I'm sure Dr. Hines has addressed that, but I'll give him the opportunity.
But no. He raised a point. Look, what he's talking about is price gouging. Prices are determined by supply and demand, right? That if there is more demand for a good, then that affect prices, supply and demand thing. But what they call it talking about is price gouging, and that is always going to be there in the system. But if people have choices, if there is only one producer or 2 or 3 producers of a particular good or a particular service, then the possibility of them raising their prices indiscriminately is very high. But if you have multiple producers and one set of producers are lowering their prices, then it will force the others to lower the prices, right? So it doesn't, the price gouging and the prices are not necessarily determined by the high wages that people earn. I think the caller is suggesting that if you raise the people's wages, they have more money, they are going to go to the market and spend more, and that is going to shoot up the prices. I don't think that is necessarily true. I don't think it's necessarily true.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. In economics, we talk of the invisible hand. And that is, prices are determined by demand and supply.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like Dr. Hines is saying, if people have choice, which is always present in the market, then we can, by ourselves as consumers, control what people sell for. Because if you have 10 persons producing as against 20 persons producing, the prices will differ. Good. We can't use the logic to say that because wages and salaries are increased, prices will increase. There are other factors.
That's what the government is saying. What they call is repeating the government thing.
Right.
We are not paying workers more because it's going to lead to inflation.
Good.
Right?
There are other factors.
Yeah.
There are other factors which must be taken into consideration. For example, government policies. Dr. Hines spoke earlier about the government giving quote-unquote incentives to producers. The PPP will argue that it is giving incentives to producers, but it doesn't have, as I would say, a social contract with these producers that it is giving incentives to. All right, we're going to reduce the taxes on fertilizer. In exchange for what?
That's right.
In exchange for what? We are going to build farm-to-market roads in Hubu Bagdam. In exchange for what?
For what?
That is what is not happening. And so the government all the time, through quote-unquote these policies, is giving to its supporters. Is giving to its supporters. Is giving to its supporters. But the citizens are getting no return for that which is
right. It's subsidizing its supporters in sectors of the economy, especially the agricultural economy. And the citizens are not seeing the benefits from that subsidy. That is given.
Sorry, Dr. Hines.
No, sorry.
Follow your life. Go ahead.
Thank you. A pleasant good morning to you, Kodaki, and a special good morning to Dr. Hines. Let me congratulate Dr. Hines on his elevation as the presidential candidate for his party, and I wish him and the party well. I endorse, to make a matter short and quick, I endorse everything that Dr. Hines would have expressed this morning on his with the issue, and also his viewpoint that he would have been putting over on his program. But as a presidential candidate and as a strong political activist, I want to as a person who's been around and who's extremely experienced in the climate in Guyana over the many years, I want that clients to think about let's think deeper into the reasons. I can give some reasons why public servants are not getting increase in salary, which is true. But we have to think deeper into what the other side can do. I'm speaking about the union and the opposition can do to force the people. You see, the people is stubborn in the reason. That will not change. That will not change. One thing I respect the PP party for is they have a strong and consistent propaganda machinery. And whether who like the PP or who don't like the PP, their propaganda machinery works extremely well and they get through what they want in the end. For example, the same teachers, the way this thing end up is exactly the way the PP was looking for it to end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when this strike started with the teachers, it was doomed to fail from the beginning. Let me explain why. When it started in February, the first thing people came out and see that the strike is political. And when the people went out and said that the strike is political, the union, they're not the union, because the union should get involved, but the political parties and politicians, they went on the defensive.
Yeah.
They went on the defensive. Now, the fact that the people do not pay the public servant government, the teachers, the police, and so forth is a political issue. It is political because if everything that I've explained this morning is political. It is not their people, the ethnic reasons, blah, 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 and so forth. It is political. So when the people came out and say that the strike is political, the opposition and political forces went to defense and say, no, it is not political, it's a better about the issue, it is union and them and blah, blah, and so forth, and they went to defense. And they failed to come out and support the union, the teachers. That's number one. They failed. They did not give they did a few wishy-washy statement, but there was no big support for the teachers during those strikes. That's number one. So the union was left to fend for themselves. There wasn't a strong support from the other side. The government was against it. If the government was against that, the opposition, you have to come out and support the union forcefully. Secondly, the other unions, which the government has already killed, because the only strong union is the left standing is the GTU. The GPSU and Patrican and all them, they are there. The people killed them a long time ago, for years. The other unions fail to come out and support the teachers, the other workers, the other public servants, right? Because of the propaganda machinery that the government continued to dispel. That was number two. So, and as this thing prolonged, and then the way the strike was called off without any proper forms of resumption. Now, when you have a strike, and maybe since then they should have suspected market and company. When you want to strike and you're going back to work, you have to have a proper written form of resumption. They went back to work, it wasn't properly done, then they come out back, and so forth, and then they start this negotiation. Then when they were bargaining for some years that gone by, all of a sudden those years was dropped. And so forth. Now, the only time in Guyana that the workers in this country saw a substantial increase in salary was in 1999. And why that was so? It was so because of the pressure. Same thing the people were saying there was no money. Dr. Jeffrey, who's a regular visitor on that DICE program, can testify to that. He was around in the circles. The PP shout to the top of the voice, there is no money. And they brought my man in, Mr. Armstrong, R.B. Armstrong. And the next failure we have is this Judas Charandas mentality we have in this country among our people, among some of our politicians, among the youth that Mr. Lake would have just shown. The people believe in our circle. They have the Judas Charandas mentality. So if they have one or two people, they may be able to get you to simmer the struggle, if I can use a term. Since those days, they tried it. Mr. Armstrong came out publicly and stated on national television, "I am not for sale," while the negotiation was taking place. He said publicly, he said, "I'm asking people to stop calling me. I am not for sale." And I'll be also finding money to pay the public servants 29%. And that's how the public servants were salary moved from a meager thing to something substantial. And then after that issue, the people went on a campaign to destroy the union. That's how they bring in something called the Trade Union Regulation Act, and they found this other thing, the car photo, and all this. They went on a mission to destroy the GPSU. They stopped collecting the union dues and so forth. And the GPSU and the politicians did not respond. And the GPSU diet sued them. And from then to now, the people have always been on a mission to ensure that union is not strong. The only one who would have left was the GTU. So, from here, we need to stop crying on the PPP because the PPP is getting the ways they have a mission and they don't accomplish it. What is the workers, the union, and the opposition are doing to counter that? Now, the last point I want to make, that Mr. Norton would have dealt a severe blow to people when he's saying that he's not going to protest on the road. So the PP is aware, they're aware that there will be no big counterproductive in terms of mass protests. In 1997, I told the PP that you cannot run this country without me. You alone cannot run this country. And I told him I was going to make this country ungovernable level. He said, I will make this country ungovernable. You alone can't run this country. We all have to live in this country and we have to coexist. And when you start a mass protest, when you bring out this slow fire slogan, it ends up being the three wise men that come together to broke up peace, and this will lead to the constitutional reform process. So we have the history data for sure that the only thing that the people can bring it to the table, it doesn't matter what they think about inflation, money, and debt. It is you that bring it to the table. You have to pressure them to show this money belongs to the people of Ghana. This is we money, this is we workers, and you need to come better than this. So that is what I want to advise, say to that guys. The current dispensation that is happening will not move nobody, will not move the people. Will not move the people. Why should people so adamant about these protests? Basically, they're fighting that the only thing they're scared of. And you are taking away the only weapon you have for these people respect you. And for the past, I don't know how many, the next thing is that the political officers cannot defend themselves. The people have to say that the ACNUD sent over 7,000 workers. It's 7,000 workers. It's 5,000 or something workers. And no opposition member is focused on the offensive to defend this stupid statement about 7,000 workers. Up till Monday night, Mr. Patterson was on the that program there that they have Monday night with
Wolfspan.
And that man asked Mr. Patterson a question. Why ACNUD start election for 5 months? And Mr. Patterson going to defend that. ACNUD never started no election for 5 months. There was one declaration, the election keep on the 2nd of March. And GCOM made one declaration until the 2nd of August. ACNUD don't run the election, and the opposition people cannot defend that. They start election and they declare election and they take 5 months. It is GCOM take 5 months, not me. GCOM, you have to say GCOM take 5 months. Every time they say that ACNUD rig election, people should be seen a court matter and $1 billion suit. They can't defend themselves. So I'm ending by saying, until the opposition people stand up to be done with all this stupid propaganda that is fatal, but it does work. It may be stupid propaganda, but it is working because the opposition cannot respond to them. They have a speaker doing them all thing in Parliament, but they're showing the speaker tremendous respect. But all the speakers do to them, they're showing the speaker this. For example, you could do a little protest. You could make a presentation by saying the word Mr. Speaker. You could say fellow Guyanese, you could say comrades or something. You could make a president and don't use the term Mr. Speaker. Every Mr. Speaker now, and the man is disrespecting them, not giving them no voice. So thank you, and that's my contribution.
Thank you for your call. Dr. Hines.
Great contribution. I think the caller nails it. Now let me say a couple of things. On the issue of the other unions not coming out, I think the caller himself answered that question. The unions are in such a bad state. The PSU was fearful that if they had called a solidarity strike, their workers wouldn't come out. And it would have been embarrassing. So although we are calling on the other unions, they should have come out and aided the teachers. The fear was that if they had called the workers, all the workers would come out and it would be most embarrassing. The other unions are in no condition to give that kind of support to the teachers in terms of strike. But they could have given other support other than the strike, because they weren't sure whether they could bring all their workers on strike. And that would have been embarrassing. Now, as it relates to political party, the caller is correct. No, I think that political parties, the political parties on the opposition side, have not pivoted to bring our parties in line with the new politics. So we're adapting all the politics and all the political tactics to a changed environment. To a changed environment. Our parties continue to be electoral machines. And in this dispensation, parties have to go beyond electoral machines. The parties have to defend their members and their supporters in a way that they didn't have to before, because their members and supporters were not assaulted in the way that this government in this new dispensation is assaulting their supporters. And so in this new era, political parties have to extend their mandate beyond elections and to say another function of the political party is to actually defend your supporters and your community. I don't think the political parties have pivoted. That a strike under the PPP is not industrial, it's political. And so therefore, the whole conceptualization of what a strike is under this PPP, the political parties have to change. And I think, although I think our party has been different, because our party said very clearly, this is all strikes are political. But in general, our political parties have not pivoted to recognize that we are in the presence of a runaway dictatorial government that is prepared to beat up on citizens at all costs. And so therefore, when you are fighting a dictatorship, you don't fight a dictatorship, I agree. With all respect to Brother Aubrey, you don't fight dictatorship by saying that you don't believe you should have street protests. Once a dictator hears that, he said, I get them where I want them. I think that was a grave error by Brother Norton, but I can't speak for him. And the PMC is a big party, an experienced party, and so on. And I don't want to get into criticizing my fellow parties. And that is why I'm saying all of us, all parties, we have not pivoted to recognize what we're in the face of. You can, on the one hand, say the PPP is a dictatorship, and then say street protest is off the table. If you have a dictatorship, you have to have frontal resistance to that dictatorship. So I think it's a contradiction to say the PPP is bad. They're beating up on this. They're taking all the money. They're thieving the money. They're this, they're that. And then you say, but I ain't going on the streets. What is left to confront a dictatorship? You can't confront them in parliament. Institutionally, they have the majority, they have the speaker, so you can't confront them there. You have to confront them outside of parliament. You have to confront them on the streets. You don't necessarily have to go breaking up things, blocking up the country, and so on. There are various forms of street protests. Various forms of street protests. I think it was a tactical mistake. It was tactically a mistake for my brother Aubrey to have taken that position. And having taken that position, it's hard now to back away from that position. The other thing is that you do not fight dictatorships as individual parties. Nowhere in the world. Nowhere in the world. In Guyana, have we fought dictatorship as individual parties? Back in the 70s, we had what was called the Committee in Defense of Democracy, that include all the opposition parties. We had the citizens organization that included political parties and civil society organizations. You had the 4 unions. These were the 4 radical unions: NACI, GAU, UGSA, and the CCW. And it increased to the 6 unions later on. And then it became the 7 unions, because the 2 bauxite unions and the public service union. You cannot, and I've been saying this publicly, and I've said it to Brother Aubrey, we cannot do this. We cannot continue as individual parties to confront the dictatorship. You have to have some form of broad opposition. Prior to the APNU coming in, we had what was called the JOP, the Joint Opposition Parties, AFC, WPA, PNC, even Ravi Dev, Rora, them were part of it. And it was out of the JOPP that APNU came. So it's a grave error. If we had an all-opposition party front, and all opposition means AFC, PNC, WPA, and probably some of the other small formations. But if you had that, and they were meeting once a month, they would obviously have met and said, here the teachers are striking. What should we do? The PNC would have said, well, it's a industrial relations thing we got. The WPA would have definitely said, no, we have to intervene. And the AFC might have said so. But we would have come to a compromise, and we would have had some kind of political intervention. But in the absence of an all-opposition front, the PNC takes its position. The PPP will be looking at the PNC because the PNC has muscles. And if the PNC said it's industrial, that takes the sting out of the opposition. The WPA, the PPP will say, I lock up Ogunse, lock up Kidaki, because the WPA has the potential to be volatile. And so lock them up. And once you lock them up, you instill fear in the population, but the PPP is going hard, and so on. And so the ability to mobilize is then stymied. The AFC, well, the AFC has never been a protest party. It has never been a street party. But I am confident that if we had a joint opposition, that our positions, our attitudes would have been different than when we go in, as individuals. Because the PPP is very skillful, right? It kept the PNC in a corner because the PNC said, we're not going on the street. The PPP said, thank you. The PPP propaganda is then, the WPA is the tail trying to wag the dog, which is the PNC. And it is warning the PNC, be careful of those volatile people. They are revolutionaries. They're going to cause trouble and get you in trouble. And what the PPP has successfully been able to do is to drive a wedge in between the opposition parties and prevent us from having a united front. Look at what we're doing. Elections are a year or less away. And each party, each of the three parties is still doing its own thing. No, nothing is wrong with that. Nothing is wrong with the AFC building its party, rebuilding its party. Nothing is wrong with the WPA rebuilding its party. Nothing is wrong with the PNC rebuilding its party. All three parties have had to rebuild after the loss of power in 2020. But if as you rebuild, you also need to rebuild some form of unity. So you rebuild individually, but you rebuild collectively. We don't have a collective front. And those people can call an election tomorrow. And we will then be scrambling to put together a front. No, we will. Because, political parties do what they want to do. We will put together a coalition, but it would have been better for the morale of our supporters if we had begun to walk on two legs, rebuild our individual parties, but also begin to rebuild the coalition. The fact that we've not done that really has put the teachers in great jeopardy.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. It's 5 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. We have lots of voice notes to play. So let me play them and then we'll wrap the program.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam and Dr. David Hines. I'm listening to the conversation this morning. Yes, it is hard on the public servants, especially teachers. It is not easy because as parents and grandparents, having your children home, the amount of talking you just got to do sometimes. And the amount of things teachers got to put up with children going to school, having them own conversation, their own discussion and about big adult story, and teacher have to deal with that and cope with that. Then try to get them to learn. Some children very difficult to understand when teacher teaching. It is so much frustrating. And remember, teacher doesn't have her teaching job alone. She has her own responsibility. She has her own headache. She has her own children. It is so many things. So what the government are doing to teachers or public servants, it is very, very, very unfair. Very unfair. But another thing I want to bring is I don't like the idea when Dr. Hines say, if we get into government, when we get into government. I cannot say it would happen tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, next week or next month, but we will have a change of government. We will have a change of government. Someday we will. We cannot live and go on like this. So please change that. That if we get into government, when we get into government.
Thank you for that voice note. We have another one coming.
Hi, good morning, Comes TP. I'm currently listening to the program, and I like the economic aspects of the program this morning. Now, I listened to Dr. Hines, and I like the proposal that he made in terms of dealing with the teachers and bringing them up to at least, medium scale of what our Caribbean counterparts are having. That is excellent. That is excellent. because it simply means that the teaching profession will command the respect it so deserved. Apart from that, once we deal with that, we look at the public sector. As you know, the public sector has been suffering, for many, many years. One of the things, and I sit down and I analyze the political situation dating back from a period to present, it simply shows that the PDP has always been dealt a very good hand. And I was talking to an individual, and he said that the PDP inherited the government at a time when the economy was changing. And the high economic program, it had already kicked in, and it had already started to benefit from the fruits of what the previous government would have been implemented. Now, same thing happened in 2015. The opposition went in, the coalition was in there. They set the foundation for the island and everything, and he is reaping the benefits of what was, implemented from before. So, dealing with that going forward, increase the teacher's salary, increase the public servants' salary. But then at the same time, what we find, with the last administration, this is from my vantage point, it's simply a case that the coalition went into power and they had zero plan. So it looked as though basically whoever comes to do. So you get to this point, you decide, you know what, we're going to need to put this in there, we're going to do this, we're going to do, and they were just feeling the way. They didn't have a map. And what I'm saying is that if the current coalition is planning to take up government, they need to have a think tank. They need to have a think tank consisting of both young and the elder. I even want to use the word elderly, but I'm going to use it. And they sit down across a big table and they map out what a government should look like. And you have it in section, dated, section it up in terms of economics, culture, the arts, education, every single thing, you map it out. And in so doing, you try to put the people who are best suited for the positions in those things, who are best suited. And it's not a case like, because this one is from this party, I can bring me in, and that one is my friend, and you need competent people. Because if you hit the ground running with a solid plan, and people know what they have to do from day one, you're basically setting yourself up for success. Even in the area of crime, investigation of malpractices and all that kind of stuff, you need to have a very broad cross-section. In order to have an effective governance system, you need to have a proper plan. And so this force is responsible for that, or this institutional organization is responsible for that, and that is what they're doing. Not one person dictating why you do so on. Yes, the president have overarching power, but every area, it must have somebody who is there that can steer the ship and produce results. We don't want a square peg in a round hole. In the way, the machine must be running at top speed and well greased. If they go back, I pray to God that they get back in there. But if you see they ever go back in there and we get a repeat of what we had in the last administration, I'm talking about some of the ills, some of the incompetence, let me just pause right there. It would be a very bad thing for us, again, as Black people, because we seem to be on the losing end for many, many years. And I think there is this unwritten rule, or maybe an unwritten culture, that because we're already Black and we are already dead bad, or we're suffering, or wherever it is, it's okay. We can continue like that because we are already in it. And we keep trying to win the others. And by trying to win them, we keep giving them, hoping that they can join us. They have 0% interest in joining us. And we are always one way.
Thank you for that voice note. I am about to disappoint some persons. I can't help it. I can't play all the voice notes. It's 3 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. Dr. Hines, kindly wrap up.
Well, No, I think I've said enough for the morning, and we'll see where it goes.
Thank you. What I'll do, I'm promising, and somebody can give me a reminder in case it appears as though I forget in the morning. Tomorrow I'll play those voice notes. I'll play those voice notes, so at least we have an opportunity to hear what viewers were saying. It's not always that I can go past the 9 o'clock hour. There are other commitments that I have to fulfill at times. I'm also considering, and it is going to happen, that I will start to package voice notes, so we can put them up like a reel or a podcast or something, so people hear all of the ideas on a particular topic once we have had that discussion. It's something I'm working on. Y'all forgive me. I know you made an effort to send those voice notes, and by all rights and with all fairness, they should be played. But time is of the essence. The program can only go on for so long and no longer. Right? Do have a blessed day. Do have a great day. Continue to support the program. Share the live. Share the live. Share the live. Share the live. Invite others to join the program. Spread the word. And of course, put something in the Cash App and the Zelle. That will help too. Put something in the Cash App and in the Zelle. Y'all have a great day. Much love. Shout out to Rhonda's hot pepper sauce and Rhonda's green seasoning, multi-purpose seasoning, and so on and so forth. Right? Rhonda's hair care products. Big up yourself, Rhonda. We'll talk more about those products maybe tomorrow, maybe Friday. But in the meantime, stay safe and let's have a good day. Love you all.